My name is Renee.
And I'm Gil from the RICH Relationship
And you
Refuge.
forgot to kiss. Mwah. We hope you guys are excited and ready. So we are going to talk about and show you how to spot and navigate the 10 red flags in relationships.
You know, in our book,
The Singles Blueprint for Dating and Marriage. Dun, dun, dun!
this episode that we're talking about today is kind of focused specifically towards our singles. Now, we're not isolating and we're not excluding the married folks
We
and
love
things
y'all.
like that. But we wanted to talk specifically as the book relates to, because we've been doing the book signings and traveling around doing those things
Yes.
as it relates to the
And
book.
you guys have been amazing.
And in one of the chapters that we talk about specifically when it comes to the datings and the singles is some of the destructive patterns and habits that tends to happen when you're dating. But if you don't pay attention to those things when you're dating, it's going to escalate and it's going to get, it's not going to turn out well. And then
No.
by the time you say you walk through and you get married and you're in a relationship for long term,
those things you ignored will be.
then you'll look at the other videos that we put up when it comes to how to build, repair, and restore your relationship.
And we want to prevent that. Aww.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we want to do even during this time of this episode is talk about some of the things that you can do, some of the preventative things, the things that you can be aware of when it comes to the dating cycle. And now when we were dating, we spent a lot of time together. And we dated for 3 years before we got married. So during that time, we didn't know half the stuff we know now.
Right.
I would even say we didn't even know 25% of the stuff
we
that we
didn't
know.
even know 5% of the stuff that we know
So we were
now.
just, like most people, you were just trying to figure things out and do the best you can when it comes to relationship, especially if you did not have someone to teach you how to do those things when it comes to relationships.
And we didn't have the internet. And we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have the ability to text. All these tools that you guys have access to, we did not have that. And so we were at even more of a disadvantage than any of you are. So if you're joining now, if you're joining later, my name is Renee.
And Gil from the RICH Relationship Refuge.
And we're going to talk about, and we're going to show you how to. So in the chat, so when you come in now, or if you're watching later, please let us know what of these 10 things have you struggled with. And we're not only going to talk about them, we're going to give you some solutions. We're going to show you how to be aware of and how to navigate these 10 red flags.
You know, a part of being aware of the red flags is only part of it. You know, like Renee was just talking about, you can give when you know it, what do you do about it?
Right.
And unfortunately, we've seen and we've talked to so many couples that they tend to ignore the things that they seen.
Red flags don't go away.
And move forward. And the next thing you know, they regretted some of the decisions that they made, especially when it comes to relationships about long-term commitments.
And I can say, okay, so I did here for 28 years, so I dealt with a lot of women. Out of the women I spoke with over the 28 years, if let's say that I had 30 of them that had been divorced, out of those 30, I would say that at least 8 of them knew before they walked down the aisle that they should not have married that person. Pause for that. So that means that most of us go into something that we know that is not good for us, knowing it. And so my question to you is, why would you ignore something if you know it's not going to fare well on your behalf? Why would you do that?
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we want to talk about also is this list is not it's not everything. It's not inclusive. These are just things that we wrote down that we notice over and over again. Now, you may have experienced some of the things.
And if you have some other ones, put them in the
let us know what they are. But if you have not experienced everything that's on the list, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But if you have seen some of the things, we just want you to pay attention to the things that you see and not ignore them as you're dating and as you're getting to know this person when it comes to long-term relationships and commitment. So the first one we're going to talk about, it's the foundation, we believe, of every relationship. You know, like I said, we were dating for 3 years, and during that time, we did a lot of talking. And during those talking things, we spent and we shared both ways. You know, when I say that, I'm talking about Renee just didn't do all the talking as it related to her. We're talking about communication, or lack thereof. If you don't communicate when it comes to the dating cycle, what do you think is going to happen when you get a ring on your finger?
And let me tell you why you could be in a relationship with someone and not communicate. Because we think that sex is intimacy.
I'm going to just go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Sex is not intimacy. Communication is the foundation for intimacy. You have to be able to share your dreams, your goals, your fears, your concerns. And we were talking about it this morning, the foundation for building a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship, is based on friendship.
Yes.
How many of you have friends that you don't talk to? I know all my friends, I talk to them. We talk. I know their goals, their dreams, their hopes, their fears, and they know mine. And so if you're going into the biggest red flag in any relationship is if it's, and one of the ways that it can be could have a lack of communication is if you become physical too soon. So one of the ways to overcome a lack of communication is to go into dating taking physical interactions off the table.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? It's like you go into the relationship already knowing that being physical will only happen once you get one of these right here, a ring.
That's when it should happen.
That's when it should happen.
The other part that we especially want to talk about when it comes to the lack of communication part is if you've been dating someone and there seems to be always gaps in the communication cycle, means sometimes they just difficult to reach or get to or even just respond to or don't respond to you. I'm talking physically, you call them or text them and they don't respond, or you are actually in their presence and you start talking or trying to get to know them, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on the list a little bit later, and they're just not responding to your inquiries or the things that you're trying to just conversate about or even just bring up. That is a red flag.
Yes, it is.
So difficulty or lack of communication is a red flag. You want to talk about the next one?
Yes, the lack one is inconsistency in their behavior. That could be extreme mood swings. That could be one way. One day you get one version of them. Another day you get another version of them. It could mean that when you're watching them interact with other people, they interact with you in one way, and then they interact with someone else in another way. Their reputation of what they're telling you and what you're seeing is not the same.
We talk about it from the aspect of hot and cold. You may have seen some of the episodes where we talk about hot. We're talking about being honest, open, and transparent, which goes back to communication.
Yes.
And then cold, it stands for closed, obstinate, lazy, and dishonest. So if you find those things, if they're not hot, but you always see them being cold, that is definitely a red flag. So again, that's closed. Closed mean we're talking about they just don't give you anything in exchange and in return. You seem to be always the one inquiring or talking or trying to get it or initiating the connections. Obstinate is just plain old flat out being stubborn.
Yeah.
That's just a fancy way of saying they just stubborn.
Resistance to change.
Yeah, and this is their behavior. When you ever met someone who just say that's just the way I am?
Yeah.
Definitely a red flag. Lazy, you dated at the very beginning and you had good times and maybe some time has gone by, and the next thing you know, those things that you did, they just kind of stopped coming. We were just talking this morning. Renee asked me, what do you like to do for fun? What do you want to do for some fun? And we've been together a lot of years, and I had to sit back and think about it because the things that I did for fun when we first started dating, I could do, even some of the physical attributes. I'm talking like if we went bowling or rollerblading or bicycling and all those things, or doing some of the more physically demanding things. That was one thing. But as you get a little bit older, it becomes a little bit more challenging for you to do some of the things. So you have to reinvent some of the interests that you have and some of the things that you may want to do. So, but when I say that lazy, that means don't stop doing. That just means change what you're doing. Do new things. Do some other things that you both find mutually interesting, so you can actually have fun and enjoy each other's company. But if you find yourself getting lazy and not even coming up with some things, that's another red flag. So that's actually a bonus red flag. And then flat out dishonesty, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in later in this chat.
Yeah. And so the next one is disrespectful behavior. And okay, so how do you resolve? What do you do when someone is inconsistent in their behavior? The first thing you should do is you should bring it to their attention, because sometimes people do things and they don't realize it. The best thing to do when someone is being inconsistent in their behavior is to just not necessarily call them on the red carpet, just in a non-combative way. It's like, hey, I noticed some shifts in the way something going on, is there
Inquire.
something, ask questions, get to know, because a part of it is showing empathy for the other person and being available to them. And so that's one of the ways you combat that is hey, I'm kind of noticing that there's a lot going, that I see a change in your mood or your temperament. Is there something going on? Is there something I can help you with? Is this working for you? Is this not? Just ask questions, be inquisitive, get the information that you need so that you can make a decision based on facts and not on your or fiction or your imagination.
Right. And if that spills over into disrespectful behavior towards the other person, you definitely want to be mindful of, you deserve to be respected. And this goes both ways. If you find that things that you have established as boundaries, however you want to describe them, are being constantly violated or overturned or overlooked, or this person isn't finding themselves trying to even change or even make the effort, that is definitely a red flag that you actually want to always be considering as a disrespect. And now part of it is, now you have to tell them, what do you consider disrespectful?
Yeah, because that can be different. Because for me, a tone, your tone, your volume, all of those can be considered disrespectful. So in the stage of you communicating and getting to know each other, establishing what is a boundary for you, you need to have spent enough time with yourself that you know what is considered disrespectful to you. You need to know that for you. That's not for someone else to set that for you. That's for you to know what is disrespect to you. And it's going to be different for each person.
Now, let me ask you a question. Would you find it disrespectful? Well, I couldn't do it because I notice and I see it. You may see it on television and you may see it in movies or whatever, or even out in real life, where I hear other women or other girls calling each other the B word.
No, that was a no for me.
Is that a disrespectful thing?
Oh, you know what?
Even from, not from me, obviously.
That's a trigger for me. Because growing up, my mom was verbally abusive. So being called out of my name, especially the B word, that will bring up the old nature.
How did that even come about, where they start using that word as a one of endearment? Talking about that.
It's like, to me, everything that's good is bad and bad is good. Our society is kind of really twisted up. But for me, no, that's a no. And people who know me know that if you want me to be very upset, call me out of my name.
Yeah, that's not something.
That's not okay.
And even from the guy perspective,
and it's not funny to me. It's not cute.
And from a guy's perspective, disrespect to him may be something that's just not a big deal to you. I can give you one as an example. When you belittle or berate a man and call him a boy, I don't know many men that will not find that disrespectful or treat them like a boy.
Yeah.
You treat them like a little boy, or talking down to them, or just more or less challenging their manhood, or saying you act like a child and things like that. You're going to find that, I would say, that is a standard line or a standard sign of disrespect that most men will see and want to consider that. They will probably consider that a red flag on you.
Right.
So now this goes both ways.
Oh yeah.
Now
women can be disrespectful, because a part of it is, another way that being disrespectful is not understanding the importance of submission. Submission is not something that has to be earned. It's not something that happens in marriage. Submission is that something that you both should bring to the relationship because of your relationship with God. And so we always go back to that, because at the foundation of all the things that we're talking about and we're, helping you to understand, we are a Christ-centered, biblically based, solution-oriented program, community. That's our beliefs. So that you have to understand that submission is a part of me submitting to God, me submitting to Gil, Gil submitting to God, Gil submitting to me, us submitting to each other.
You know, some things that you can also consider disrespectful is being rude.
Yes.
And being rude is not necessarily, it could be in behavior, it can be in words, it can
Body
be in
language.
actions, and it can be in body language. It can be in a lot of it can come a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So when you find yourself, whether you're on the receiving end or the giving end of that, that's something to be mindful, because this is list that we're kind of talking about. We're talking about the 10 signs or 10 warning signs, red flags that you are, especially when you're dating, to be aware of. If you find these are constantly coming up, or you're either experiencing them, or you can take some stock inside yourself and say, whoa, I may be doing some of this stuff. This is what this is all designed for.
Yeah.
This is why we put the book out of the
Singles Blueprint for Dating and Marriage.
This is why we put the book out, because while the Bible addresses everything, sometimes you just need it to be made plain and simple a little bit. And some people like lists. Just give them a list, and
let them see it.
Let them see it. It makes it a lot more tangible. It makes it a lot easier for them to actually see. Doesn't mean you have to beholden to the list,
right?
But be aware of the list can definitely be an asset and a benefit to you in the long run. So that was number 3.
Okay,
now,
so sidebar.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we love to watch dating shows, and one of the shows we really love to watch is Love Is Blind.
Okay.
And the next thing I'm going to talk about, we were watching the episode, and I introduced Jackie to Love Is Blind. She never watched it before. She watched her first episode. She was like, "Oh my gosh, it's nothing like what I thought." And so the next one, another one of the red flags is always talking about yourself.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so if I were to say, well, you know, I really don't want people to think of me as being wealthy, and all you talk about is your money. I'm giving you an example of what is talking about yourself. It doesn't just have to be talking about yourself. It can be talking about your accomplishments. It can be talking about your pet. It can be talking about, there's lots of ways you can only talk about yourself. And that's one of the red flags you have to be aware of, because in a relationship, it's not going to just be me. I always say, for me, the people in my life, I'm so grateful for the people in my life, because you can't always be the star. Sometimes you have to be able to play a different role. And so if in relationships, you have to be the one. If in relationships, if you have to always be the star, you have to always be the center of attention, the center of the conversation. You have to lead the conversation. If someone else says something, you got to one up them. That is a red flag that you don't have room in your life for someone else.
Right. And you'll find this is a common thread with people who are self-centered. You may get an indication of self-centeredness is meaning, like Renee has kind of talked about, someone is always talking about themselves in some capacity, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. They always bring the conversation back
to themselves, no matter what it is. It's like, oh yeah, you know, I was fishing yesterday, and I went fishing and I caught a fish. Oh yeah, I went fishing last week and I caught a.
I did it in the Cayman Islands. I did it in the Cayman Islands on this boat. You know, where they did DC fishing. You know, it could be anything.
It's like, could it just be my turn? Why do it all have to be your turn? So that's another one of the red flags, is that you're always talking about yourself.
Number 5 of this list we're talking about, just like talking about themselves, they avoid personal topics. When I say a personal topics, you're dating someone, that should be the time where you're getting to know them.
I have a good example.
Hold on. Okay. Not getting to know them in the capacity of finding out who they are as a person. You know, yes, you're going to probably be physically attracted to them first, visually. You know, that's usually the first thing that goes both ways, him to her and her to him, where you're visually attracted. Something about them caught your initial attention. But then you maybe started dating and things like that, and you start talking and
spending time together.
Yeah, and they talk about themselves. But this is another one where they avoid personal things about themselves. It could be for a lot of different reasons, but it's not like you're giving them the third degree or you are interrogating them. Not like that. But you're talking about them because you want to get to know them. That's a difference when, especially now, we're talking about dating. We're not talking about someone who you've known for years and years and years. Now, if you know somebody for years and years and years and they don't even want to talk about anything personal, that's a That's definitely a red flag.
It
But
is.
especially when you're just dating and getting started. But you said you had an example.
A perfect example of not wanting to answer personal questions. One of the questions that I think that is so important for us all to be able to answer about ourselves is, what is your biggest growth area? Because when we were doing this, we're at an interview and we're doing the book signing in Ohio, and we were talking about this list. And I asked Gil, what's one of the things on this list of 10 red flags or something that you struggle with? So to me, even with this list of these 10 red flags, you should know yourself well enough to know, of these red flags, what are the ones that you struggle with? Because a part of it, the part of being a healthy human being is knowing your growth areas and knowing your strengths, knowing the areas where you struggle. And so a personal question would be asking something like, what's your biggest growth area?
Or you should know.
Yeah.
Or even just like this, you can use the list and the things that we're
Yeah.
sharing with you today and say, what is the thing that sticks out for me? We
About me, not about someone
not about
else.
somebody else, not about
Right.
somebody you're dating. So the first one was lack of communication.
Mm-hmm.
The second was inconsistent behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The third one was disrespectful behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth one was talking about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fifth one, which we just kind of addressed and talked about, was
Avoiding.
avoiding personal topics. So if you find those things on that list, those are the first 5. Compare yourself to that list and think
Yeah.
about it. How am I stacking up, or am I a red flag when it comes to that? So you want to share number 6?
Number 6 is overly passive.
Overly passive or possessive or jealous behavior.
Oh. And see, when we were growing up, I really think that a lot of us, because we maybe had unhealthy relationships, we thought that it was cute when, girl, he want to know where I'm at all day. He don't let me do nothing. He don't let me go nowhere. That is, you are not an object. You are not a possession. No one should try to possess you. No one should try to control you. You're not an object. You're an individual. You're a human being. And so when someone wants to know your every whereabout, they want to know everything about you. They want to put a tracker on your phone, and that is a major red flag. And sometimes if you didn't have a healthy grown up environment, you can see that as positive, but it's not positive for someone to want to possess you.
And the reason why we put these two together with the overly possessive behavior and the jealousy, because they're probably not far from separated
Right.
from each other. You're probably going to see one or the other
Or them
when you
both
see
together.
one out. You usually see both of them together when you see one.
Yeah.
So if somebody who's jealous, they probably are overly possessive, and somebody who's overly possessive usually gets jealous pretty easy. And this is a sign of controlling behavior.
It is.
And that's something that you definitely want to be mindful of. And it's weird because I believe you can see that more now with women going towards guys.
Oh yeah.
I
want your passcode to your phone. I want you to call me every hour. If I call you and text you, the extreme of you can't reach someone. If you can't reach someone like 500 times a day, that's obsessive.
If you calling somebody 500 times
or
a day,
200
or a
20
lot,
or 30,
yeah.
And so we're talking about having realistic, healthy expectations in relationships. And so to be able to feel that you should be able to know their every whereabout at every minute, my whole thing is this: if I can't trust you when I don't see you, then that is a me issue. You shouldn't be with someone that you don't feel like you can trust. You have to know their every whereabouts and be with them every second of the day.
And I think it's important that as you're dating and getting to know each other, and I thought about that when it came to us, when we were dating and getting to know each other and we spent a lot of time together, the more time and the more assurance that you have about your relationship, the more comfortable you're going to be, and you're going to find that you're not going to be possessive because you're comfortable and confident and secure in the relationship that you actually have. Yeah. Exactly.
And you know I'm yours.
So, number 7, unwilling to compromise.
Yeah.
You're going to find in relationships, there always is going to be compromise from the day you started dating all the way to if you're been as long together as long as we have, which is coming up on 36 years next month. or longer, you're going to always be compromising.
Yeah, not compromising your values and your integrity. It's compromising, or we'll say it's adjusting your expectation.
Mm-hmm.
It's your willingness, and we were talking about it this morning. I don't believe the relationships are give and take. I believe that a relationship is two givers coming together to give, and then as you give to each other, your needs will be met. If you see it as give and take, you feel like you're losing something. But I'm coming to give.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to serve. I'm coming to love. And therefore, I'm not doing it to expect it. I'm doing it because God gives me so much. He pours so much into me that I'm going to share that with the person that's the closest to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So as you think about those things, that unwillingness to compromise is going to be a big, big obstacle if you find that you're just immovable. It just always got to be your way. All of these things, you'll see that there's kind of intertwined together. If somebody is giving you one red flag, more than likely they have some other ones that kind of are
And
connected to it.
one or two red flags doesn't mean you
No.
should cut off a relationship,
No.
because we're human and we're growing. And like a lot of these red flags are things you can communicate and work through. Some of them are character issues, and that's what you need to be aware of.
Right.
Another one that's important to be number 8 is a negative attitude.
Or we mentioned it earlier about a red flag when we were dating. This one was mine: pessimism. Being very pessimistic when it comes to certain things. If you always find yourself, like I did, and that was a flaw in me, and or a growth area, like we like to say, in me, I think growing up, where if you've been disappointed a lot,
Yeah.
and as you were growing up, you tend to find that the glass is half empty, or you're going to always be disappointed, or things are never going to work out, or something is always going to go wrong, or things are going to happen. That it can spill over into your relationships as you go through life.
Yeah.
And you'll always look at it from that perspective. I thank God for my relationship with the Lord, because that was one thing that literally has changed in my life, because it gives you a hope. The opposite of pessimism is hope. When you have a different aspect when it comes to those things that seem to be constantly disappointed about. I never find a good person. I never find somebody who's going to love me for me. Or in this instance that we're talking about it from the dating cycle, that doesn't have to be your story.
Right.
But it definitely doesn't have to be your perspective. If you find that that's your perspective, you may want to start looking and relying on some of the hope that you have on the inside of you, that you do deserve to find somebody that is going to be good for you and good to you. So that's one of the things. But if you find that this is a red flag in the person, I thank God that Renee stuck it out with me, and didn't say, you know what, you too pessimistic for me. You always just, yeah. But see, that comes with grace, and that comes with some of the other aspects of relationships, to where nobody's going to be perfect, and everybody's going to have some red flags. But it's just knowing them and be willing to deal with them and address them, especially not from her tolerating it. But if I had that pessimistic or that negative attitude perspective, and I never changed over these 35 years, it's going to be a big problem. That deserves to be a red flag with her, for me, so that's just something I wanted to share.
She just has so many green flags that your few little red flags are just, the green outweigh the red.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably a good summary point, when it comes to some of the things that we're actually talking about.
A history of failed relationships.
Number 9.
This is a really big one now. This is something that one of my friends, Jackie, she said this to me. She said, I'm always leery of women when they don't have any female friends. Or when people don't have any friends. Or you can't get along. It's like...
Jackie's so friendly, but anyway.
Yeah, Jackie is miscongeniality. But a part of this understanding that if life is about relationships. I think about this past few weeks about how many people I got to see and spend time with, and people that I know from high school, and people that I've known since they were in college, and people that are a part of our family. No one is going to have every relationship in your family be resolved and reconciled and great. But if you have no one, when someone says I don't have anybody, that's really normally a me problem. Everybody can't be wrong. And so sometimes all of these red flags that we've not addressed and unpacked in our own self make it really hard for us to have relationships with other people, because relationships require communication. They require that you think about somebody. There's so many things about relationships that make us better, that when you meet someone who, especially if they're, it's different when you're younger, but as you get older, if you've gone your whole life and you have no relationships, then that's something to really be aware of. And I always say, guys who don't treat their mom well probably won't treat you well either.
Sure. And when we talk about a history of failed relationships, this is focused primarily on the dating cycle. But if you see, this is going to probably be a common thread throughout all the relationships. They have disagreements with friends. They have disagreements with coworkers. They have disagreements with family.
That they don't resolve, because it's one thing you can have a disagreement with someone, and some relationships are worth fighting for, and if both people are willing to work for it. And in some relationships you have to realize that not all relationships are, you can have forgiveness without reconciliation. We have to understand that life is about, not that me and you don't ever disagree. You disagree, but how do you resolve them? How do you work through them? But both people have to want to do that. So if they have a history of relationships that are unresolved or reconciled, just all of them, then that, I would say that's a major red
Oh
flag.
yeah, and this is the word of the day and the word of the I won't say of the year or last year or whatever, but I heard it a lot. Toxic, 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 toxicity, and those
Right.
types of things. If someone is constantly using that word, more than likely
They may be the one that's toxic.
it's almost like if someone is constantly using the word toxic,
Everybody can't be
especially
toxic.
in the context of relationships, it's probably because they have a lot of failed relationships.
Yeah, and that go back to the pessimistic, a negative. If you have a negative attitude, you're going to see everything through the glass as half empty, versus seeing that, well, yeah, people are human, they make mistakes. Extend grace. So if there's a constant history of every failed relationships, that is a major red flag.
And then finally, for number 10, there is a big pressure for you to make a commitment. Make a commitment.
Hi, I just met you. Let's get married. Hi, I just met you.
And it's not funny, but you find that if you find that you're pushing it too fast,
Yeah.
to get to the point to where, whether it's a biological clock ticking, or you tired of being alone, or you tired of just failed relationships and those types of things, but you find that the next person you get with is like, let's make a commitment.
And another way that someone could be pressuring you for commitment is to be physical. If I just met you, I don't know you. We were talking about relationship hygiene. It is not healthy for you to say, hi, how you doing, let's have sex. Someone who wants that type of commitment from you that fast, or any type of physical or financial or commitment, hey, can we move in? Hey, can I borrow your car? Those are all commitments that you should make over time, because you need to see someone in different seasons and stages before you start making commitments to them. How could you commit to somebody you don't know?
Right. And that can be very challenging for you if you feel the pressure, but you also can be on the other end of that, where if you're the person that is
Giving the pressure.
initiating, you giving the pressure that, hey, or you find, I hear this, I seen this in the movie we were watching the other night, like trying to put a label or a name on the relationship.
It's like
Okay,
you
you
just
just
met.
met someone and you've been dating a couple
It's like,
times.
am I your girlfriend?
Why do you have to define what the
Am I your
relationship
fiance?
is? Yeah.
It's like, I just said hi.
Tell me that's not pressure if you're on the receiving end of that.
Yes.
You know, if you have seen that or
We've
even
been together for 3
experienced
weeks,
that,
so
put
what am
that
I?
in the chat. Have you been on the receiving end of someone putting pressure on you to make a commitment to them? You know, that's a definite red flag of someone maybe a little self-focused. It kind of goes back to the one we kind of already talked about, number 4, you constantly talking about themselves, that kind of thing. That self-centeredness, that kind of puts a unnecessary pressure on the relationship that it may not be able to withstand if you make a commitment too soon.
Yeah, because one of the things that I can say when Gil and I were dating, that he made me feel safe. I could be myself. We were watching the interview. There, a couple there talk about, yeah, when you find that person, you can just be yourself.
It's so
That does
nice.
not mean, that doesn't mean that I'm not being kind, and I'm being, but I can be me.
Right.
That's important. You know, it's important to be able to find a safe space, and even with the people you're in relationships with, even not just dating, with your friends, it's important that you give people the genuine, authentic version of yourself.
Right.
And when you can't do that, and then they fall in love with or decide they want to be friends with that person, then guess what? That's not who you are. And so the reason why we want to show you and, you know, go over these 10 red flags is because so many times we get in a relationship and we don't realize, oh my gosh, how did I get here? You got here because you ignored all of these signs. And that's why we talk about in the book the difference between dating and going out. It should be a progression. It's going to take time. Relationships should grow and flourish like a plant, not that you pop it in the microwave. Because if you don't allow it to have a healthy amount of time to grow and flourish, there's going to be some things you're going to miss.
And while this list, like we said at the very beginning, is not all inclusive, there may be other things that you've recognized and you've seen. This is just to give you a snapshot and an idea that we put in the book, the Singles Blueprint, to kind of give you a gauge for our singles that we've been talking to over the years. And maybe we have just thought about it and said, you know what, let's give them something that they can use as a guide, you know,
a compass.
It's something to use that they can say, hey, this is something that I can be mindful about as I'm dating or I'm navigating the dating cycle, to be aware of. Maybe you're going to forget because you have these rose-colored glasses on because you feel that this may be the one. Well, the red flags are not an all-inclusive list that says if you see one or two that it's like a time to move on. No, it's just to make you aware of what's the real lay of the land as it relates to your relationship.
And it's primarily designed for you to make sure you're not a red flag. This book is not about how to find Mr. or Mrs. Right. This book is how to become the best version of yourself so you can give yourself to someone else. One of the things that I love, you know, there are scriptures in here, there's Bible verses, but if I were a single and I'm trying to go on this journey of discovering myself, Proverbs is such a good place to kind of gain wisdom, because in the Hebrew culture, in order to get wisdom, they use the book of Proverbs.
Right.
And so Proverbs is a really good place to go to gather principles and understanding about yourself and in relationships. And so in addition to using the book of Proverbs, you could also use the Singles Blueprint, because it'll help you to kind of think about things you may have never thought about, you know. And so if you guys are watching now or watching later, please put your questions, put your comments in the chat. Subscribe to our channel. I was looking at our analytics. A great deal of you guys are watching, and we love you, and thank you for watching, and thank you for commenting. But please subscribe, because when you subscribe and you comment, that allows YouTube to know that this is something that other people should be watching. And so we appreciate you guys watching, and we appreciate you guys joining us in different cities. The next city we'll be in is Montgomery, Alabama. We're going to be at Sweet Creek at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, and we're also going to be from 2 to 4 we'll be at Sweet Creek, and from 5 to 7 we'll be with the Beautiful Boutique. The location is to be determined, but I would love to meet you guys in person and connect with you, and let you guys get your own signed copy of the Singles Blueprint for Dating and Marriage. And we are so excited about serving you. We hope that this time we've spent together with you all has been beneficial. We hope that it's been encouraging. And thank you guys for watching and commenting. And if you guys have any more questions, please put them in the chat. Please reach out to us at help@richrelationshiprefuge.com, or you can go to our website at richrelationshiprefuge.com, or you can leave comments on our YouTube channel or any other social media platform so that we can connect with you and let us know how we can better serve you.
So remember, guys, we are stronger together. Thanks for hanging out with us on this beautiful Saturday. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you guys next week.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much. Let us know in the chat what time works best for you guys, because it says that from 12 to 4 is you guys' time. So we want to know what time works best for you, and we want you to tell us something that we could do to benefit you in your relationships.
So, see you guys next week.
We love you guys. See you next week.